Don't tell anyone, but last night I found a bag of gummy bears on the floor of my limo and I ate the whole thing. And I think they must have been a special kind because after about 30 minutes, I couldn't feel my face and that made me laugh very hard. I woke up my house manager and I said, I'm hungry and also I don't think time is real. He said, put on your shoes, we're going to Waffle House. I said, Waffle House? Can you pour syrup on the walls? Because I'll eat the whole thing. So we get in a helicopter and go to this little cafeteria that looks like a very brightly lit prison kitchen full of pasty teens who look like they also love gummy bears. I order 7 Texas melts, triple hash browns, and 4 waffles. And then they cook it right in front of you like some sort of Benihana for degenerates. I ate everything. And then I slept for 17 hours and dreamt I was a life-size gummy bear living inside a house of waffles. It was divine. Did you know there is a place called the Dollar Tree? Not to be confused with the one in my backyard. In my world, money does grow on trees, but it's a little shop where you can get a little bit of everything for almost nothing. I was in the market for party favors for my 13th bridal shower, 13 times a charm, and I couldn't bear the idea of giving all of my guests the same Hermes Birkin bag again. So I said to my assistant, let's go to this Dollar Tree and see what we can scrounge up. We get there. It's like this very organized dumpster full of all these strange treasures that all cost $1.25, which is a very confusing business model if you ask me, but what do I know? I'm just a billionaire. I approach a young lady with a name tag that says Carol, who looks like she's seen better days. I say, Carol, I'd like a tour of the establishment and a Riesling if you have it. She says Reese's are in aisle 3. I say, ooh, that must be a new vintage. I'm looking for bridal shower favors. My budget is $500. She gasps, says $500? I said, my God, no, Carol, 500,000. How embarrassing. You must have thought I was such a cheapskate. Show me your favorite pieces. So Carol and I did a dollar store sweep. And now all of my party guests will be getting a very fun Dora the Explorer gift bag that includes 1 party horn, 2 packs of batteries, 1 expired lipstick, a candle that smells like cinnamon spice butthole, and 3 pregnancy tests. I paid $47 and I gave the remaining $500K to my new bestie, Carol. I was staring out the window of my PJ the other day, halfway between Malibu and Connecticut, when the stewardess came by to take my lunch order. I said, what is that down there? She said, that's Ohio. I said, Ohio? How exotic. Let's go to Ohio and eat some Ohio food. So we do an emergency landing into a cornfield and head straight for this place called the Cracker Barrel, which I think it's called that because it's full of white people who look like they live in barrels. And it's sort of like this speakeasy for hillbillies where you walk through this store full of like quilts to get to this secret restaurant. The waitress comes by. I say, I'll do the Wagyu tartare with white truffles. She said, how about the chicken fried steak? I said, that sounds violent, but sure. While I was waiting, I bought 12 rocking chairs, 8 gospel CDs, and a candle that smells like poor people Christmas. But the best part of the whole experience was that every table comes with this little like peg game that's very fun and also very different from the one I used to play with my ex-husband. I said to my girlfriends this weekend, I am tired of drinking Veuve on the yacht every Friday. Let's do something dangerous. So we pile into the stretch Hummer and I say to my driver, take us where the poors go. So he takes us to a place called a dive bar, which I assumed would be Olympian diver themed, but instead it was just a dark room that smelled like pee-pee and dead dreams. So I said, table for 4 to a man who I assumed was the maitre d', and he said, sure, and then he puked on my Jimmy Choos. I said, no big deal, they were only $6,500. So I go to the barmaid and I say, I would love a round of Belvedere martinis and oysters on the half shell. And she gives us a bowl of peanuts and something called picklebacks, which I guess are just martinis for sad people. I had 12, and then I took off my clothes and befriended a rat in the bathroom who I took home in my purse. His name's Charlie. I love him. I was craving a bit of fresh pasta from Campania, so I said to my assistant, let's arrange a tour of Italy. She says, have you ever been to an Olive Garden? I said, been to one. I lost my V-card in one on the outskirts of Tuscany back in '98. She said, no, it's a restaurant. I said, Italian? She said, adjacent. I said, divine. So we hop in the PJ and head to this place called the Suburbs of the Midwest, which is basically like a giant shopping mall full of factories that make cheesecake and gardens of olives. It's 6:45 on a Saturday and the place is a buzz. I mean, this is the spot to see and be seen if you're middle-aged, middle-class, and middle-heavy. The waitress Jen brings us a basket of unlimited breadsticks that taste like buttery pillow cushions and a very wet salad. I order the fettuccine alfredo because when in Naperville, and I ask for her to suggest a beverage pairing. She suggests a cherry Sprite, which was correct, I tipped her 5,000%, and then she gave me a doggy bag, but I think she forgot to put the doggy in it. Last night, I caught my 12th husband in the jacuzzi with pool boy number 3, but they wouldn't let me join in. So I sent them packing and said to my assistant, I need some comfort. She said, I'll call Papa John's. I said, Papa John, who is that? Some kind of perverted Santa Claus? Because I will definitely sit on his lap and ask for presents. She said, no, it's pizza delivery. I said, oh yes, I've seen this in the dirty movies. I'll go put on my favorite lace negligee. So I get all gussied up and the doorbell rings. I open it. This young man is standing there with this thin little crustache. I said, I thought we ordered thick crust. He said, you ordered stuffed. I said, now we're talking. He says, that'll be $19.99. I said, I didn't realize you'd be such a cheap date. Here's $3,000. Keep the change, Papa. He said, my name's Kyle. I said, oh yes, I love a little role play. My name's Betsy. I'm the farmer's daughter. Won't you help me milk my cows? He says, I have to go. I have other deliveries. I said, not before you show me what's in the box. So he opens the box and there's nothing in there but a big cheese pizza. I said, what am I supposed to do with that? He says, you eat it. I said, get out of here, Kyle. I don't know what kind of scam you're running. I didn't want a box of pizza. I wanted a box of I was looking to get into a bit of trouble this weekend, so I ditched my charity gala and said to my pool boy, take me somewhere wild. So we go to this place called a frat house, which is like a home for wayward boys who desperately need the approval of their distant fathers. It's called Sigma Chai, which I thought was the name of my favorite fall drink, but it's actually a filthy crumbling house full of stinky boys with no moral compass. We walk in, a hunk of beef named Beryl greets us and asks if I want to do a keg stand. I said, is that short for kegel? I don't think I need to do any more of those. Mine is perfectly sculpted. He said, no, it's something you drink from. I say, let's not get ahead of ourselves, Beryl. Why don't you grab me something festive to sip on and we'll see how the night goes. He brings me something called Coors Banquet, which tastes less like a banquet and more like a toilet. Then we play a game called beer pong, where you throw balls into a cup. I won, of course. I'm very good at playing with balls. By that point, I was feeling quite tipsy, and Beryl asked if I wanted to come see his DJ setup. I said, sure. Do we need to get the PJ to take us to a pizza? He says, no, it's just upstairs. So we go to this sad little room that has a mattress on the floor. There's no sheets, but what is lacking in bedding is made up for in stray socks. I say, Beryl, where is your maid? He says, my mom lives in Pittsburgh. I said, how quaint. And then he showed me his DJ equipment, and I showed him my kegel stand, and now I'm the queen of the frat boys. I was feeling antsy after a long day of lounging by my third biggest saltwater pool, so I said to my assistant, let's go for a drive. So we hop in the Bentley and head into town, but on the way there, we passed this place called Hooters. I said, look, Carol, an owl store. I've been looking for a new exotic pet ever since I lost my favorite wild cat in my 8th divorce. Marty got the snow leopard, but in the end, she got him. May he rest in peace. We pull over. I walk in. A woman named Candy, spelled with a K, greets me. She says, how many? I say, let's do 2. Better to have a good pair. That way they can be friends. She takes me to a table and asks if I want something to drink. An owl store that also serves bevies? 5 stars. I say, I'll do a Bordeaux. She says, we have a yellowtail. I say, I'm not familiar with that varietal. What are the tasting notes? She says, sadness. I say, count me in. I look around. I'm surrounded by men. I guess they're all on the hunt for birds of prey too. She comes back with the wine and says, do you know what you want to order? I say, all I see listed here are wings, but I'd like the full owl. She says, we don't have owls. I say, what? Where are the Hooters? She says, you're looking at them, sweetheart. And then I laughed because I realized this wasn't a store for owls at all. It was a store for perverts. Even better. I ordered a round of yellowtail for the whole place and then brought everyone back to my estate for a nightcap. It was a literal hoot.